Okay, so welcome to this live webinar on step-by-step guide to the budgeting cycle. This is one of the most requested topics this time of the year because a lot of people are now into that zone where they are going to start preparing their budgets. It's usually in July, August, September when they do this exercise. So a lot of people requested this, and hence we came up with this webinar. So welcome, thank you for joining. And being here on a Friday evening where you could have spent this time elsewhere. So thank you for your trust. And I hope in the next 1 hour or the next 60 to 90 minutes, you will take away a lot of insights that you can apply practically in your role. And the objective is that you use these and apply all of these things that we share and prepare the budget for your organization for your next financial year. So thank you for joining. Before we start, let me just see how many people are here. Okay, so I already see 40 people have joined, and we'll start, and I mean, others will join in the meanwhile. So, a quick check on how many of you have ever participated in a budgeting cycle, or have you experienced preparing budgets in your organization firsthand? I am not talking about observing what others have done. How many of you have participated? Type me in the chat box that you've actually worked in a budget cycle. Okay, I see one person, Abby, respond yes. Okay, so a lot of more people are now coming up and responding yes. So I see a lot of people have worked in the budget. So I think it will be good for me and Dhaval also to learn different practices because, as you know, this budgeting is not something like a standard or a law where you have to follow some restricted guidelines or any particular methodology. It's very flexible, it's very intuitive. So it will be also interesting to learn what other people are practicing. So hope you can share those as well. And if you have to, please feel free to come on the mic and share anything that you feel while we are going through this webinar. Okay, so let's start the session. Before that, quick overview of what are we going to cover today. So the budget cycle will be the main part. Before that, we'll quickly cover what is budget. Some of you may not have done this before or may not even have heard about the budgeting cycle. So we'll talk about what is it and why is it important. Then we'll get into the budgeting cycle, which is three phases, starting from the planning phase. So you before even starting the budget cycle, you make sure that you are planning for it. You develop guidelines, you prepare calendars. All of this will be covered in the budget planning phase. Then we move to the budget execution, where you actually share those. You share your templates to the different departments, and then they will reach out to you. You will coordinate with them. You will update all. You will together work on that particular department's budget. They will send you back the templates, and then finally, the last step is on budget reviews and consolidation. So once you get the submissions, you have to work on consolidating them, getting it reviewed, and there are multiple levels of reviews that happen during the budget cycle. We will take a look at all of those. Okay, so this is the agenda for today. Before we start today's sessions, I want to quickly introduce FP&A Professionals Institute and my co-founder here who is joining me today. So Dhaval is a chartered accountant with 15 plus years of industry experience. He is the co-founder and the lead faculty at FP&A Professionals Institute. He has mentored thousands and thousands of chartered accountants. He's been an online instructor for over 5 years now and has trained more than 5,000 professionals. So welcome, Dhaval, and looking forward to hearing from you as well today.
Happy to be here, Asif. It's always a pleasure to partner with you. And welcome to everybody.
Welcome. Quick note about myself. So I am also the co-founder at FP&A Professionals Institute. I have trained more than 2,000 people across different courses at FPI in the last two and a half years. author of two books now. So author of All About FP&A, which you see on the right, which was published back in 2022, and the new book, which is launching by the end of this month. So it's on 27th of July, which I will also talk about later in the webinar. So so Dhaval started training in 2018 with his course on FP&A foundations. So this was on Udemy, and it is still there on Udemy. And a lot of people have taken this program. I think more than 2,000 people have undergone this program. And while I wrote the book in 2022, I partnered with Dhaval and we came up with a more comprehensive curriculum for FP&A study, or for people who want to prepare for FP&A roles or who are working in FP&A roles. So idea was that if we are hiring somebody in our team as an FP&A analyst, what would we be teaching those participants? So based on that thought process, we came up with a curriculum. It took us 6 months to develop this curriculum in 2022, and we launched our first batch in, I think, August or September 2022. In 2023, we came up with a self-paced version of the FP&A masterclass. A lot of people requested us that because of the different time zones, and also the hectic schedule, if you could have a recorded version or a self-paced version. So we did that in 2023. More than 250, 300 people have now taken the FP&A Launchpad as well. So combined together, the FP&A Masterclass and FP&A Launchpad, more than 600 people have taken the program together. Also, we came up at the end of 2023, once I went into this full time. So at the end of 2023, I left my full time role at Coursera as a FP&A lead for APAC, and we introduced more programs on financial modeling and Power BI, all coming from requests from our alumni who wanted to learn more about Power BI and financial modeling. And this year, 2024, as I mentioned, we have launched our in-depth 6-month FP&A certification, and the book From Accounting to FP&A also launches this month. So that is a little bit about us, and we've trained more than 3,000 people in this process through FPI learning programs, and we have FP&A programs at all levels, from beginner to intermediate to advanced. Okay, so with that, let's get into today's webinar. And before we talk about budgeting, quick 2 minutes on what FP&A is. So some people I notice have not worked in FP&A before. So quick introduction to FP&A, and then we'll get into the budgeting. So FP&A, as I like to define in my book, which is all about FP&A, and this is the most simple way you can define or you can talk about FP&A if you have to in your interview. So FP&A team acts as a bridge between the business teams. You see the business teams on the left side, the sales team, marketing team, the product team, all the different businesses and functions that you see on the left, and the senior management on the right, the CFO, CEO, and all the directs of the CEO. So FP&A team acts as a bridge between the business teams or the function teams on the left and the senior management on the right. And they do that through four key main functions. And those functions are budgeting, forecasting, management reporting. Under management reporting, you have variance analysis and profitability analysis. So this is a quick background about FP&A, and our focus today will be on the budgeting and specifically on the budgeting cycle. Okay, so what is budgeting? So quickly, if an organization wants to have a 5-year plan, say we are in 2024, and they want, or they have a vision for 2030, say 5 years from now, and they want to double their revenues in the next 5 years. They want to 3x their profits, and they want to enter 4 more different countries, and they want an additional 1,000 people working for their organization. So if this is the vision of of a company, how do they translate this into an actionable plan? So that's where budget helps. So 2024 to 2030 is a 5-year period or a 6-year period. It's a very long period. However, you'll have to break this down into smaller, manageable periods, and that's where the concept of the budget comes into play, which is the annual business plan, where you plan for the next year for 2025, and uh, basically this is where you define what you need to do in the next year to be able to achieve this long term vision, or what should happen in the next year so that you are on the right track to achieve your long term vision, which is the 2030 vision. 2030 vision. Some people call it, so budgets are, I mean, are called by different names. Some people call it budgets, commitments, target plans. So different terminologies are used by different geographies, different departments, different industries. However, all of that mean the same thing, which is the budget. Okay, why budgeting is important? It gives you the direction and the focus areas. It is important to be equally aware of what areas you need to focus during the next years, because there are so many departments, so many different initiatives that happen in a company. So you need to know which areas you need to focus on, and all those things are defined while you prepare the budget. So it provides you that direction and focus. It gives you the spending plan, so it tells you how much money you have to spend in the next financial year, and following that plan will ensure that you don't run out of money, or you don't end up in a situation where you compromise on your profitability or any other parameters. So it gives you the spending plan. Also, it holds the management accountable. So when you are having a budget, you know that you will be asked questions if you overspend, if you don't meet your targets. So you will be held accountable, and you will be asked questions, and you will have to justify, or you'll have to give out reasons why you were not able to achieve the target. So it holds the teams, it holds the departments, it holds the management accountable. Also, it helps you plan the cash flows. So you exactly know how much money will come in, how much money will go out. And if you need to plan a capital investment, or if you need to plan a big investment, say 6 months from now, you exactly know how much money will be there in September, or how much money will be there in October when you actually need to make that investment. So it helps you to manage your day to day cash flows as well. Okay, let me take a pause here and see if people know about the difference between the budget and the annual operating plan. So type in the chat box, what do you think is the difference between the budget and the annual operating plan? Okay, budget is a part of AOP, but what is it? What is the annual operating plan, and how is it different from the budget? AOP is the business plan. Okay, okay, okay. So annual operating plan is a broader term. So it's a broader term where you have your entire strategy for the next 1 year, and budget is one part of the annual operating plan, and there are other parts to the annual operating plan as well. Like it might have your growth strategy, it might have your marketing strategy, it might have a lot of other things which are required to be able to achieve your 1 year goal or your 1 year target. And budget is an important part of the annual operating plan. So it is the financial tool, or the financial part of the AOP, where you prepare the income statement, or you prepare the budget for the next year's income statement, and that becomes an important part of the annual operating plan. Yeah, somebody says budget is one way how much amount needs to be spent, whereas AOP is the way to spend the amount. Okay. Budget outlines the expected revenues and expenses, while AOP plan details of how to achieve those financial goals. Okay, so those are all good definitions. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, the next concept you need to understand is on difference between two different budgeting approaches. So one is the top-down approach and the bottoms-up approach. So what do you think? What is top-down approach? What is the bottoms-up approach, and what is the difference between the two? You can just type in the chat box and maybe one or two sentences. Okay, so the question is, what is the difference between the top down and the bottoms up budget? Okay, bottoms up is participative, top down is based on sales revenue, top down is budget given by the management. Okay, so I think those are all in the right direction. So your top down budget is typically the number given by the CEO or your CEO's team. So they will tell you, okay, this is what we are expecting. We are expecting you to increase revenues or grow the sales by 20%. So they will have some target in mind, and they will not involve in this process, they will not involve the department, or they'll not involve the teams who are actually going to deliver that target. So that's an approach which is a top down approach, where the senior management will give you the target, and there is no say, or the departments don't have any say in that target, or in they'll have to take that as a target. Okay. So Anil is saying top down is budget set by upper management, bottoms up is created by the lower level management. So that's the exact definition. So thanks. When you do bottoms up budgeting, you reach out to each and every department, you reach out to each and every business unit in the company, and you collect information from them. And based on those inputs, you come up with their particular business unit budget or their particular department budget. So once you collect this budget from every business unit, every department, then the FP&A team will consolidate this and come up with the company's budget. So that process, the entire process is called the bottoms up budgeting. Okay. And why this is important? Because today, whatever we are going to discuss will be in line with how a bottoms up budget cycle works. So we'll be talking about the bottoms up budget in this webinar. All right. So that's the difference between tops down and the bottoms up budget, and we'll be talking more on the bottoms up budget in this webinar. Okay, so what does a annual budgeting cycle looks like? So it's typically split into three parts. The first part is the planning stage. So although you're preparing the plan, but that also has a planning stage, which is a fact. So you also have to plan for preparing a plan, if I have to put it that way, because it's a 4 month process, or some companies it's anywhere between 2 to 4 months. So it's a long process, and it requires proper planning, proper guideline setting, proper calendar management to be able to make sure that you meet all your milestones and all your deadlines during that 3 to 4 month period. Okay, so first stage is the planning stage, and we'll talk more about this in the next few slides. The second stage is execution. So once you're done with the planning, you share the templates, or you reach out to the departments for their inputs, and you work closely with the different departments, help them wherever it is required. And during this phase, you hold a lot of interactions, meetings, where you go through their submissions, you ask them questions, and you take inputs, and you collect all the information that is required for your preparing the entire company budget. So this is where you interact with different departments, and you collect all the inputs from different departments as an FP&A team. And the last part is on consolidation and review. Once you've collected all the templates, or once you've collected all the inputs, the last part would be to consolidate all of that, to review it internally with the finance team, and then there will be different levels of reviews, and we'll look at all of that in detail in the next slides. However, this is the three step, or the three phases of the annual budget cycle in most companies. All right. And I see some questions in my DM, so we'll take the questions at the end. However, if you have any questions, you can just put it in the chat box, and if we'll come back to those questions in the last 15 minutes. Okay. So now what we'll do is we'll go through these three stages one by one, and we'll see what this is in detail. Okay. So let's talk about the planning stage first. Okay. So planning stage consists of two steps broadly, and the entire, the entire budget planning and execution and consolidation is all in 10 steps. So we'll go through each of these steps one by one. The first step in the planning process is you develop the budget guidelines. Your budget guidelines are nothing but the rules or regulations that you expect all the teams and all the departments to follow. It includes roles and responsibilities. So it tells the different people in the company who is responsible for what part of the budget. So what is the FP&A team's responsibility? What is the sales team's responsibility? What is the marketing team's responsibility? So it's a detailed guideline where it talks about roles and responsibilities. Apart from the roles and responsibilities, it also talks about some of the rules and regulations or some of the common guidelines that the people should be aware of. We'll take a look at some common examples of budgeting guidelines, and maybe you can type some more if you have seen this in the practical life. So one example could be the budgets should be submitted using the provided templates to maintain consistency. Very simple, right? So what imagine what will happen if there are 50 different departments or 50 teams in the company, and everybody starts submitting the budget in different format and different templates. It will become very difficult for the finance team or FP&A team to be able to consolidate that budget in that case, right? So this could be one of the guidelines where they have to strictly use the templates that you provide, because those templates are set in a way that once they come back, those will get automatically pulled in by the system, or they are automatically linked to the consolidation sheet, whatever it is. But this could be one of the budget guidelines. Okay, let's take a look at some more. Detailed justifications must be provided for any variations or any significant variations from the previous year's budget. So this could be another guideline. So if you are asking for money, more money, or if you're asking for more expenses or more investments, there should be a detailed justifications if there is a significant difference from the last year. This could be one of the guidelines. Any adjustments to the budget after submission must be approved by the CFO. So once you submit the template, and if you want to make any change to that, that has to be approved by somebody. Okay, this could be one of the guideline. Again, these are just sample examples, so not necessarily you have to have all of these in your guidelines, but this gives you just this gives you some ideas of what you can put in your budget guideline. Okay, another example or another example of a guideline could be departments should submit a formal request for budget adjustments with justifications. Yes, we'll share this, so you will get the recording of this session. So yes, you will be able to refer this again. Another example could be ensure right phasing of expenses. So sometimes what happens is the department or the teams who are preparing the budget or submitting the template, what they'll do is they will make sure that they put in the right numbers for the full year. However, they will not have it broken down by quarters or by months, which will then create issues when you do the variance analysis in the next year. So that could be another guideline. Ensure that you have the right phasing of expenses. Okay. Again, these are samples, just to give you some ideas. Another example could be once a quarter is over, any unused budget will be sent back to corporate. So if you don't use the budget in that particular quarter, you will lose that budget for the rest of the year, and it will go back to the corporate, and the corporate team will then decide where that money is to be used. Again, this is just an example. I have just noted down some of the examples that I have seen in my experience, and I would love to know if you have seen any other examples of the budget guidelines. If you have, feel free to put that in the chat box, and I'd be happy to read it out. Okay, so there's a question in the chat box. What do you mean by a budget adjustment? So adjustment means, because you will be preparing this budget in different phases, right? So first step would be you will collect the inputs, and we'll take a look at all of those steps in the next few slides. So in short, if I have to answer this in short right now, so there will be different versions of the budget that will get created because of this long and this step by step process that we are seeing. And usually those versions get created because somebody requests for an adjustment or somebody requests for a change. So any change to the previous version and you have to create a next version is an adjustment. Okay, and we'll talk about this in the later slides and we'll come back to it if required. Okay, so this was on the budget guidelines. Let's move to the next point. Okay, so once you prepare the budget guidelines, the second part of the planning process is to have a very structured calendar or a timeline for your entire 3 months or 4 months, whatever the length of the budgeting process is, so that everybody knows what are the different timelines, what are the different milestones. And that is one of the most important parts of the planning stage or even the entire budgeting process. If you don't do this right, most likely you will end up mismanaging the budget or you will end up not meeting the timelines that are expected. So having that calendar in place is the most important or one of the most important things. Okay, so when you have to create a calendar, think about this like while you are preparing for an important exam. So what do you do when you have to prepare for an important exam which is 6 months from now? What do you do? Some responses in the chat box. So if you know you have to appear for a very important exam 6 months from, what will you do today? Okay, you will prepare, right? Preparation is understood, but how will you prepare? Okay, timeline and timetable, right? So that's the right direction. But what will your thought process be? What will you think about? Okay, prepare, organize in critical order, most complex, allow the most time for. Okay. Okay, that's a good answer. So, by gathering historical data, by analysis of past and future, I'm just reading out the comments in the chat box. So, data collection and gathering, review historical data, study, reviewing syllabus. Okay, I'm talking about exams, not the budget now. So most people what I used to do is I used to think about the final exam. Okay, so the final exam is on. Let's take an example. So the final exam is on 31st of December in this case, right? So what I would think is, okay, this is the most important day, and I need to be prepared for 31st of December, and to be able to do that, I should at least appear for two mock exams by say 15th of November. So I need to do two trial exams or two mock exams, right, before the 31st of December. So by 15th of November or maybe 45 days before, I should be ready with my. I should have given at least two mock exams, so that gives me some feedback on the final exams or on what are the lackings or what are the shortcomings that I need to work on. So I'll think about the mock exams that might be maybe 1 month before the main exams. Before the mock exams, I'll prepare a detailed timetable of different subjects of when I need to complete which subject, and based on that, I will prepare for the mock exams. I might even do chapter by chapter tests. I might even want to enroll in a test series which allows me to give give test chapter by chapter, right? So all of you do that, right? In when you appear for an important exam, you prepare by chapters, you prepare by subjects, and then you give a mock exam, and then you finally are ready. You also keep some buffer in case there is some contingency. If you are sick for say a few days, or if you have a family event, or you have a family function coming up in between, so you also plan for all of that. So same thing goes while you prepare for a budget. So when you prepare for a budget, you think about the final exam, or in this case the final exam is the board review or the board meeting that happens usually at the end of the year, and you work backwards. So if the board review needs to happen on 15th of December, we will need to get the CFO and the CEO reviews done by the 15th of November. So if anything happens between, I mean, after the CEO, CFO reviews, so these are two different meetings. CFO reviews one meeting, CEO reviews another meeting. So we need to have these two reviews done by 15th of November. So that gives us enough time to make any adjustments if they request or if they ask for any changes. And we'll have at least 1 month between the board and the CEO review. So that could be the thought process. Okay, to be able to do the CFO and the CEO reviews on 15th of November, I will need to make sure that I have the consolidated budget from all the departments, which has been reviewed by the FP&A team by 30th of October. Okay. If I do this by 30th of October, I will know that if there are any changes required, or if there are any things that they have missed, or if there are any updates that need to be done, I'll have at least 2 weeks to do that before the CFO or the CEO review. So you will do all of these activities. You will consolidate. You will review the draft budgets. You will make any adjustments that are required before 30th of October. So by 30th of October, you will plan to have the consolidated budget ready. Okay. Now, to be able to get to this stage, which is the consolidated budgets, you will again work backwards, and you will see what all preparations need to be done. You'll have to share templates. You'll have to have discussions with the different teams. You'll have to make them understand those templates. In some cases, you might also have to give them trainings if you are using a budgeting tool. So all of those preparations need to happen before that. And then you need to figure out how much time all of this will take place, and then you work backwards and you decide, okay, if I start by 1st of August, all of these things, which is budget planning, or developing the guidelines, or developing the templates, preparing the budget calendars, all of this will take probably 2 to 3 weeks. Then we'll share the templates with the business teams at the end of August, and they will take maybe 2 to 3 weeks to fill up the templates and come back, and they might have some questions. We'll go back and forth, and it might take another 1 month to do all of the collection of inputs, right? So all the inputs that need to be collected, that might take some more time. Once you've collected input, it's not over. You will have to consolidate them. You will have to go back on any questions you have. You might notice some things that they have missed, and you may want them to incorporate those. All of those adjustments are budget adjustments. So you will have to keep some buffer in between as well for all of these different stages. Okay. So think about your final exam, and then you work backwards and you create a detailed calendar. So this is the detailed calendar. It doesn't look like a calendar, it's more of a timeline. So let's put this in form of a calendar. Okay, so in the next slide, you see the same thing in a calendar format. So you divide the August to December in different weeks, so week 1, week 2, week 3, and you have 16 weeks of work that you need to plan ahead. So you place the board review on, say, the last day of, or on the 15th of December in our case, or whatever the date we had decided. And you say, okay, before the 2 weeks, I need to get the CEO review done. Before the CEO review is done, or to be able to do the CEO reviews, I need to get the CFO reviews done by the first week of November. Okay. Now, to get the CFO reviews done, I have to do a lot of work during September and October, which is collecting inputs, drafting or collecting and consolidating the budgets, drafting the consolidated budget, reviewing those budgets. So all of that work needs to happen in September and October. And to be able to do that in September and October, I'll need to share the templates. I'll need to interact with the departments, explain them what needs to be done, do trainings if required. And to be able to do this in, say, September, or in August mid to September mid, I'll have to do the I'll have to start working on the budget guidelines and the calendar in August. So it's like a project management. So people who have studied project management in detail may understand will understand this. So you have to prepare a timeline. You have to start with the end in mind, which is the board approval or the board review, and then work backwards, and then slot out different dates. Also, there might be a possibility that you are busy because it's a quarter end in I mean, September end is a quarter end, right? So a lot of companies plan for 2 weeks of buffer, fourth week of September and first week of October, because they know they will be super busy in doing the usual month end close. And also, listed companies have to do a lot more exercises, including sharing their quarterly statements to the analyst and to the state. So probably these 2 weeks they will not be having any work done. I mean, they may not be able to spend any time on the budget because they are busy with the quarter end close. So you have to plan all of that. It's like your family function, or planning for contingency, right? You know, this event will take place here. Or it might be a case where in the third week of October, the company is planning a full week company offside, and everybody will be outside and nobody will respond to your emails, messages. So you'll have to plan for that in August, or you'll have to plan for that on day one itself. So that is a budget calendar. So that's the planning stage where you prepare the budget guidelines and the budget calendar. Idea is to slot out the different dates, milestones, and the roles and responsibilities. Figure out who will be doing what part of the budget, who will be responsible for what areas. So that was the planning stage. And I will take a quick, maybe 30-second pause here and see if there are any questions on the planning stage. Okay, is this useful? Did you find this useful? Type yes in the chat box if you found this, if you've not seen this, had not seen this before. Okay, so I see one yes. The stages overlap. Yeah, they overlap. So we'll talk about that. So they overlap. So if you notice in the previous slide, there is a overlap, right? So budget planning can happen simultaneously. So you can do the planning, or you can. So in this case, the preparation of templates is both planning and preparation work, right? So maybe the drafting of templates is a part of planning, but testing it and then sharing it is a part of preparation. So they may overlap. Yes. So here you see that overlap, right? So here there's an overlap, here there's an overlap. Do we need to create budget assumptions? So budget assumptions is something that you have to document. So whatever you assume while you are preparing the budget, all of that needs to be documented. So that will get documented while you prepare the budget template. So in those budget templates, you have to document it below your submission, or in that same document, you can just mention it. Okay, these are the assumptions I have taken while preparing the or while submitting the inputs. Can you show the template? Okay, we'll take a look at some of the sample examples at the end after the presentation is over. So maybe in the last 10 minutes, we can take a look at some examples. Okay, so let's go to the next stage. Okay, so we talked about the planning stage. So next is the execution stage, and we'll talk about the execution stage. So what happens in the execution stage? You will share those budget templates. You will share those budget templates with the different teams. Um, in a situation where they already know this, they've been seeing this or doing this for the last maybe 5 years, and then probably they don't need any support or they don't need any guidance. However, in most cases, some business teams or the some one of the 10 different teams that you work with might be new or might have a person who was not there last year. So you'll have to identify those people who may need extra support and extra guidance. Most likely, what companies do or what FP&A teams do is they do office hours for budget every week. So what I've seen in practice is they set up a weekly call with everybody in the company who is responsible for the budget submission, and say they decide, okay, every Thursday we'll do this weekly call where we will invite all the people who are responsible for the budget submission, and they can come there and they can ask any questions that they have. So that could be one approach. That is what I've seen in one of the companies. In other companies, in one of the other companies, what I've seen, they approach it differently. So they will identify one finance point of contact for each area. So they may, okay, define, let's take an example. Okay, for marketing team, one of the FP&A manager is responsible. Okay, so anything related to marketing, you will be the point of contact. So marketing team will know this person is a point of contact for anything related to the budget. The marketing manager will know what area he is or she is responsible for. So those are two different approaches where you have identified one person separately for that particular area, and then that person will be responsible for that particular area, and the business teams will reach out to that person. Or if it's not a, I mean, usually that happens in a bigger setup. If it's a smaller company, it's a mid-sized company, then you can have a weekly call that I discussed. So either of the two approaches you can follow. And I'd love to know if there are any other approaches that you have seen work in your practical life as well. Okay, what I request is avoid sharing direct messages right now. I am not taking a look at the direct messages. So any direct message if you have to send me, you can send me after the presentation is over. So I'm only looking at the group messages right now, the messages that are sent to everybody. Okay, so that is on the budget template sharing, and we'll see if I have some examples handy, and if I can share them, I'll definitely share them after the presentation is over. Meetings, we talked about meetings. You can either do one-on-one meetings, you can assign different people for different areas and let those people do those meetings, or just have a common meeting where everybody comes and they ask any questions that they have. Okay, and this meeting is not just to share the templates, it is to review the inputs, it is to make sure that you answer all the questions that the business teams have. There will be a lot of questions that will come while they are also preparing and submitting these inputs. So you make sure that you are there guiding them on every step of the way. Okay, once all of that input submission or the template filling is done, they will send you back the draft template. So this is the end of the execution. You have now collected the different inputs from the different departments. Okay. So let's now go to the next part. So sample Excel templates, we'll take a look at those at the end of the presentation. So I'll have to stop sharing and then I'll have to go to my folders and figure out those Excel files. So we'll do this at the end of the presentation. Okay. So now we talked about planning, execution, and the last part is consolidation and reviews. Okay. So once you have the different inputs, or once you've collected the inputs from say 10 different departments in your company, the FP&A team, or there will be some, either somebody designated in the team, FP&A team, as a consolidation person who does all of the consolidation. So if it's a small FP&A team, you will designate maybe one person who does the consolidation. If it's a very big company, if it's a $1 billion company, there will be a separate consolidation team. There will be a separate corporate team who will do the consolidation. So depending on the size of the company, you will either have one person who is managing all the consolidation, or you could have a team of maybe 15 people as well. If it's a company which has 200,000 employees and doing $10 billion in revenue. Okay. But the idea is to consolidate all the different budgets that you get and come up with a overall company budget. Okay. Now, while you review these budgets, you have to make sure that as FP&A manager, as FP&A analyst, you closely monitor whatever the submissions have come. You understand why they are different from the last year's actual numbers or the last year's forecast numbers. Also, why they are different from what you had expected. So make sure that you scrutinize or you go through the submissions in detail. And what I like to do is think of is as this is my own business, or this is my own company, and people are asking for money to, and if they are asking me for money, and if I have to give the money, I have to be very diligent and I have to be very careful before I hand over the money. So think about it. It is your organization or your own company, and that way you will be extra careful while doing the analysis. Okay. In many cases, you might notice that the business teams have missed some areas, or they have missed certain items that were part of the last year's actual numbers or the budget, or they have included some one-time active event that was happened in the last year, some one-time expense that happened in the last year that may not happen this year. So you have to take all of those things, observe all of those things while you review the submissions, and then guide the business teams to be able to make those changes wherever required. And those are probably examples of the adjustments that we were talking about, or the budget adjustments. So this could be one type of adjustment where you proactively request or you proactively guide the business teams to correct their errors, or correct if they have missed something, maybe they can add that back. So that could be one type of the adjustment. Okay, so that's on the budgeting reviews. Once you've reviewed the, I mean, once the ideally what will happen is, as you move from July to December, you will have different versions because of these budget adjustments. So one type of adjustment was this, where you make you ask the business teams to make some changes because they have missed it, or um or you think that they have significantly overstated something or under promised something. So in those cases, you can ask the business teams to change, and that could be one example of adjustment. Because of these adjustments, there will be different versions that will get created, and by the time you come to November or close to the board review, there might be 10 different versions or 10 versions that might have been created. And you have to make sure that you also track the different versions. So version tracking is an important part of preparing the budget. So you don't want to be in a situation where you are referring to an older version, where ideally you should have been referring to version 9. You should not be referring to version 5 while you are already at version 7 or version 8. So make sure that you have proper version control. And if you're using Excel, this becomes slightly difficult. So make sure that you name the files properly. You name the file with version 1, version 2, whatever the way works best for you. Ideally, using tools will help you with the version control. So popular tools like Oracle, IBM, Anaplan, SAP, all of these have scenario builders, or they have cubes in place where you can make sure that there are no errors while you move from one version to the second version. Okay. So maintaining different versions is an important part. Once you are with the final version, and this final version will be after the CFO review, CEO review, and the board approval. Once you have the final version in December, you will use that final version. If you've prepared that in Excel, you will then load it into the budgeting tool. Some companies do it directly in the budgeting tool. Then probably you don't have to load it. It's already there in the tool. So that's the last step, which is the budgeting log and the upload. Okay, let's take a look at some of the steps that happens in the consolidation and the review step. So you consolidate the different department budgets. We already talked about this. So the FP&A team will review, and they will propose any adjustments if they are required. Then the FP&A lead, so this is the manager, this is probably analyst or manager. Then the FP&A head, or the lead FP&A, who's the head of FP&A, will review this together with the head of business. So there will be one more level of review after the manager reviews, and they may recommend you some adjustments. So that could be another type of a budget adjustment. So say after reviewing, after you submit this version, say for example, this is version 7, you reviewed the version 7 with the FP&A lead and the business head, and they come up with three different changes based on their experience, and that could be another adjustment, and that will lead to creation of version 8. So that's the reason you have different versions. Once the version 8 is created in this example, you will then review it with the CFO or the head of finance in this case. And CFO might have some more suggestions or some more inputs, which probably the FP&A lead did not know, or the business review lead did not know, because CFO is direct in touch with the CEO and he knows what the CEO is expecting. So he might have some more inputs that might have been missed by the FP&A lead and the business review lead. So he gives you one more adjustment. So because of that, just one adjustment, you create version 9, and then you come to the final version, which will be taken to the CEO for his review. Again, CEO will review it. He might suggest some improvements, some changes. You will create version 10, and then that final version 10, gets updated and gets shared with the board, and then they will review that final version, and most likely they will approve that. Okay, the final approval by the board. So these are the three different phases. Planning, we talked about the budgeting guidelines, roles and responsibilities, making sure that everybody knows what their role is, and also the budget calendar, which is the most important part of the planning stage and the entire budget cycle. Execution, where you prepare the templates, you test those templates, you submit those templates, you make sure that the business teams um, are in good position to update those templates. You answer questions, you go back and forth if required, and then you have the final version of their submission. Okay, once you have all the submissions from the different teams, different departments, you consolidate them. You come up with the entire company level budget. You review that, uh, and the reviews happen at different levels. First review will be internally with the FP&A manager of that particular, I say, the marketing manager, and one person is responsible for marketing budget in FP&A. That person will review it. That will be the first level of review. After that, the FP&A lead will review. That will be the second level of review. After that, the CFO will review. That will be the third level of review. CEO will review. That will be the fourth level of review. And then it will finally go to the board. Okay. So that's the entire budgeting cycle. I hope you got some ideas or some takeaways that you can use in your next budget that you prepare. And I'd also love to hear from you if you have had any other experiences of the budget cycle. If you want to share, we'll take those as well in the next few seconds. Okay, so those are the 10 different steps, right from planning, preparing the calendar, sharing the different templates, and we'll take a look at some of those templates, making sure that you meet the business teams weekly at least on while the budget preparation is going on, and you answer any questions. You make sure they are on right track to submit their templates at the right time. If you notice they are not acting or they're not submitting, maybe you'll have to report that to your FP&A lead, and they will help you with. I mean, they will give you some suggestions which you can implement and then fast track those teams which are not responding. So I've experienced in many cases where one of the teams is not responding at all to the budget submission, and then I reach out to my FP&A lead. The FP&A lead will talk to the business head or the head of the that particular, and then when it comes from the head of the business, then they will start acting. So that is also possible. Different departments will submit their budgets. So that is the planning and the execution stage, and then you consolidate and review. Reviews happen at different levels: manager level, then the FPN lead and the business head will review that, CFO will review, and then the final review will happen by the board of directors and the CEO. So this is the entire budgeting process, or the budgeting cycle as we call it. And usually most companies spend about, I don't know, anywhere between 2 months to 3 months, sometimes even 4 months during the entire process. Also, it's not the entire 4 months that they are spending. Understand that there are other things happening during those 4 months. So there are month end closes, there are monthly reviews happening, there are quarter end reviews, there are quarter ends for listed companies where they have to report to the analysts and the street. So all those things are also happening simultaneously while you prepare the budget. Okay, so that was a budgeting cycle. One thing I wanted to quickly also introduce is the different parts of the budget. So typically a budget will look like a income statement or a P&L. So it'll start with the revenue budget. So you will start preparing the revenue budget first, because that will define, or that will influence a lot of other budgets that you prepare later on. So most likely you will end up preparing the revenues budget first. So during that execution phase also, revenue budget will take priority over the expense budget. So you'll budget the revenues first, and then you will decide, okay, for these much of revenues, or for this budgeted revenues, we'll need to have these many people, these many resources, and your expense budget most likely will depend on your revenue budget. We go into details of revenue budget with different examples in our FP&A programs, both the live FP&A masterclass and the self-paced FP&A launchpad. So if you're interested in looking at detailed examples of each of these areas of revenue budgets, production budget, inventory budget, all of these together form a part of your cost of goods sold budget. Then you have your sales and marketing budget, admin budget, and R&D budget. So we go through different examples using Excel and case studies, going through, I think, more than five to seven examples we go through for each of these areas in our programs. Okay, so that brings us to the FP&A Launchpad bundle, which I was talking about. So in this program, we share a lot more information in terms of live examples or real life case studies where you can prepare these budgets using Excel files, using simulated environments of conversations with the different business teams. So that is the FP&A Launchpad program. I'll talk about the FP&A Launchpad program more in detail. So it is not just covering budgeting. So budgeting is just one part of the FP&A Launchpad program. So budgeting is one of the important parts where we go through the different budgeting methods. Today we talked about the top down and the bottoms up budgeting approach. We go through five or six more different budgeting approaches in detail in this budgeting module. We also look at forecasting. So once we have prepared the budget, what happens after that? Okay, so once you start your next financial year, how do you update the forecast? So let's say you have completed the first quarter and you have to update the forecast for the remaining 3 quarters or the remaining 9 months. So how do you do that? We go through detailed examples for forecasting, including different methods of forecasting, including time series analysis, regression analysis, driver based forecasting. So we talk about different methods of forecasting, different terminologies that you need to take care while you're forecasting, like phasing, seasonality, one timers. We discuss all of that in detail. Then we have a detailed module on management reporting where we talk about more than 7 or 8 different types of management reports, including the month end report, quarter end report, flash reports, different management reports that you use while you are in your FP&A role. And then there are important modules on data storytelling and business partnering, where we show you how to present data or how do you present information that makes sense to senior management in a way which is in a story format that easily drives the decision making. So that is covered in the data storytelling module. And the final module is how do you interact while you're preparing the budget, and even otherwise you have to interact with a lot of non-finance people, including sales, marketing, HR. So how do you make sure that you have the right relationships with them, or you interact with them in the best possible way? So this is covered in the last module. Okay, so along with the FP&A Launchpad, it's an entire bundle. So we also offer you the FP&A Foundations course as a bonus. You get our FP&A Power Resume Blueprint and the interview prep secrets, which we have used to guide our students in the past to prepare resumes and to appear and crack FP&A interviews. So you get that entire blueprint, entire framework, step by step, which you can follow, and that is a part of the entire FP&A Launchpad bundle. Along with that, you also get access to the mastermind calls recording world. So we have been doing one mastermind session every month, which could be a Q&A session or an expert speaker session where we invite expert guests from different industries, tool experts, FP&A, different CFOs, who share their experiences. So you get access to all the prior recordings, which is I think more than 12 now. You get the access to all the monthly mastermind call recordings, and also you get access to the future ones. So every month we do one mastermind call where we invite either guest speakers or we do a Q&A with our alumni. So you get access to all of those recordings. Together, all of this probably worth more than $1,000. However, what we like to do is, as a part of this initiative where you've joined us and you've spent the last 1 hour with us understanding the budget, it seems like you are genuinely interested in learning about FP&A, and that is also our mission, to help people get into FP&A roles. So what we'll do is we'll offer this Launchpad bundle to you at a 70% discount. And this will help you right from understanding the ins and out of the FP&A role to tailoring your resume to preparing for interviews. And even after you get into the FP&A role, the mastermind calls will be a good support for you to ask any questions. Okay. Uh, there are hundreds of testimonials that you can find in on our web or on our website from our past students that you can take a look at, and the results that has brought in. And you get the entire bundle at a 70% discount by using the code budget 70. So just in case if you want to get into the FP&A Launchpad bundle, this would be the best time to do that. We only offer this discount either in the webinars or maybe during Black Friday or Independence Day, or maybe once or twice in a year. So uh, yeah, I would highly recommend you get into this if you want to get into the details of the FP&A role. With that, let me stop and take any questions.
Yeah. Are we sharing the bundle link in the chat box, Asif?
Yeah, so let me do that. Let me stop sharing my screen. I'll share two things. One, I will share the FP&A Launchpad bundle link just in case anybody wants to explore that. And the second thing is we'll go to the templates. So we'll take a look at maybe a couple of templates. Yes, so we are recording this session. So we will definitely share this as a recording for you. And the link is in the chat box. So you can use the code budget 70 to get that discount just in case if you are interested. All right, so that brings us to the end of today's webinar. So what I'll do is I'll allow you to ask questions. In the meanwhile, I'll figure out some templates that I can show to you.
Asif, it's the course link and not the bundle link.
Okay, so that's only that link is only for the Launchpad. So the discount code will work on the entire bundle, which is all the bonuses as well. So let me just share that also. Yeah, so I'll be able to show. I'll show you some templates. However, I may not be able to share that because that may have some data that I may not want to share. So I can show you the templates here, and that'll give you a good idea. So let me just figure out some templates. Dhaval, would you have the headcount example that maybe that we can share as a template example? So let me share one which I got.
Yeah, I can check.
Yeah. So this is for a B2B company where you collect information from different teams. So it could be as simple as you list down all the clients for that particular team. You have say 10 different sales teams and every team has maybe 15 different clients. So you list down the different clients that they work with and you give them some historical information about those revenues for those particular clients and ask them, okay, what they think will be the revenues for the next 9 months or next 12 months in the case of a budget. So the template could be as simple as this. You send these type of templates to all the different teams. For example, if you have say 10 different sales teams in a company, you will send the exact same template to the different teams. So once those templates come back, once you have this for all the different companies or all the different departments, you can easily consolidate that and come up with the total revenue number. This is one of the examples, and we I also wanted to share one more which I am not able to figure out. But let's see if Dhawal has
I can
anything to
I
share.
can share a couple of them. So first is a revenue example. I mean, this is actual data, so I won't be able to give you the details. So these are some of the business unit wise details that we had, and we used to collect the numbers client wise from all the business unit leads, right, and consolidated on a month, consolidated, and this is the budget number. And we had comparisons as well as to what is the last forecast actuals, what are the previous years. All of these details are available. So this gives us kind of a, and some analysis is done here as to what is the quarterly breakdown, how much is the growth percentage, how much is the new business to be found. All of that is shared here. I mean, this is all actual data from one of the companies that I was working with. The other example is a headcount and payroll forecast. So this is again one of the templates. So we were collecting the salaries data. This is how you kind of given the department details and then the salary details and everything. The headcount is confirmed by the department head, and we used to liaise with the payroll team to kind of input the salaries and come up with the total salary cost, and then carve out certain charts. Do some analysis as to whether this is high or low, or what are some of the edits that are required, and finalize the payroll budget as well. So these are some of the examples. Again, some of them are actual, so we can't share with you the more details, but